transformation is happening thanks to all of you and thousands of people outside of this room, but it is happening right in front of our eyes. It is just an amazing, amazing transformation. How do we know that we're already in that transformation, in that turning point? Well, let's start with, had you asked me just even a year ago, would we have 186 national climate change plans? I would have said, what are you smoking? 186 national climate change plans, right? Amazing, covering 95% of emissions. $200 billion that are already into their decarbonization stage. 4 trillion. It was just 1.3 just a couple of weeks ago. Already $4 trillion committed to divesting out of fossil fuels into renewable energy. 100 companies already committed not to decarbonizing, to 100% renewables. 150 regions. It was just 7 or 8 a couple of months ago. 150 regions, cities, countries committed to the Under 2 MOU. I mean, it is just the difficulty is just to keep up with this incredible momentum, and it is fantastic. And I know many of you here have really helped in many, many different ways to get this going. So thank you very, very much for that. And where are we here in Paris? Well, I did hear this morning that several people went to several different dinners around Paris where they celebrated the Paris Agreement last night. And I go, well, how come I didn't get that email? So let me just, bring us down to reality. Yes, we are in a very good shape, because of the broader context in which we're operating, as I have shared with you a couple of data points, but also because last night we did not have the Paris Agreement, but we did have the end of the first part of the process that is in the hands of the more technically savvy colleagues from all countries. And today we initiated the much higher level political process. So no, we do not have a Paris Agreement yet. It is going to be, honestly, a very, very tough job. A very tough job. The next 6 days are not to be underestimated, the effort that so many countries are going to put in to come to an agreement that will bring everyone on board. That is 195 countries. We cannot leave a single country behind, to agree to a completely different economic development model than what we've had for 150 years. It is amazing. So, are we going to agree? Yes, we are going to get an agreement. But let me be very frank with you. My sense is that we're going to get an agreement on the direction. I don't think, it'll still be difficult to get clarity on the direction. I wouldn't say that that's easy. But I do feel that after a lot of very hard work, we're going to get an agreement on the direction. What we may not get is how fast are we going to pursue that direction. That to me is going to be the big incognita that we will deal with up until the end. So what does that mean? Well, that means that that's the role for you. Isn't that wonderful? So you will get, after we come out of this very, very dark tunnel, next weekend sometime, you will get a Paris Agreement that will give us a very strong signal of the direction, but leave open, I fear, the question of how quickly are we going to be able to follow that signal. So your role, as far as I'm concerned, is to take that signal and turbocharge it. That is going to be our common and shared responsibility after we get the Paris Agreement. My sense is that we're going to have to turbocharge it along two axes at the same time. The first is timing. The second is geography. Timing, because yes, we can decarbonize the global economy, and we could do it according to, the pull and push of markets and technology development. That won't cut it. Science tells us that we have to reach global peaking in this decade. So that means 5 years. If it takes us 10 more, it'll be more expensive, we will still get there. But in order to safeguard the most vulnerable populations, which has to be our guiding star here, safeguarding the most vulnerable populations, we have to get to global peaking by 2020. That is not what the Paris Agreement is going to say. But we know that that is our moral responsibility. So that's the timing. So for anybody who's thinking, what is my job going to be over the next 5 years? Now you know. Global peaking. The second axis along which we will have to all join forces is the geographies. It is not the same for everybody to concentrate and help industrialized countries to reduce as it is for everybody to focus and help developing countries reduce their emissions. That's where it's really going to make a difference. Because they are the ones that are increasing their emissions, they are the ones that are increasing their population, they are the ones that are building more and more infrastructure because they need it. That's where it's really going to make a difference. And just to complicate matters, as we know, moral imperative, they're the ones that are going to be most hit if we don't do that. So, no matter which way you look at it, we have our work cut out for us over the next 5 years, and we know the geography that we have to concentrate on. So what would be my suggestion for all of us to think about? I think we need to think about very, very different ways of connecting the dots. So how does the governor of Aceh in Indonesia, who said, committed to halving his deforestation by 2020, how does he know that the Global Consumer Goods Forum has actually committed to that, and how can he dovetail his efforts into all of those companies that will, over time and hopefully accelerate, only buy from suppliers like him? How does India, who has 300 million, completely unacceptable in 2015, 300 million people without power, how do we ensure that that power is delivered with renewable energy? Because otherwise it's going to be delivered with coal. It's got to be delivered. So how do we ensure that it's delivered? How do we know that we will be able to get the finance schemes that allow us to take individual solar panels to each of those homes if they're isolated? And how do we get the financing, which is completely different for large solar installation if we're talking about those populations that are concentrated in some cities? Completely different financial schemes. How do we do that? How do we take the Prime Minister Modi's fantastic initiative of the Global Solar Alliance, 120 countries, including my own wonderful little country, between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, all of us privileged with solar exposure. How do we ensure that we take full advantage of that solar exposure? How do we ensure that we get the investments for the manufacturing that is going to be necessary for us to take full advantage of that potential? It's not easy because, we as a human race, we've been trained to think not long-term but short-term, and we've been trained to think not across but in silos. And that's the way we go into the world. And if there's anything that is going to be able to allow us to turbocharge the solution, it's going to be cutting across those silos systemically, absolutely systemically. So we have to figure out how do we systematically target the linkages across sectors, across geographies, with different instruments, different tools, and how do we actually synapse all of these different solutions that we have so that we can have exponential results. Henceforth, 1 and 1 can never be 2 again as far as climate change. 1 and 1 will have to be 3, 4, or 5. That's the way we have to think. because we only have a very short period of time. A very, very short period of time. So as you go into your discussions tomorrow, and I looked at your program, of course, the way to begin to do the inventory of where we are is to do sectors, geographies, because that's the way we conceptually organize ourselves. But that's not the way we're going to solve this problem. We have to do these very, very synapse linkages to be able to get to exponential results. Because frankly, here's my new definition of BAU. It ain't business as usual anymore. It is now business as urgent. Thank you.